This video shows a few examples of just how well Adaptable integrates with OpenFin to provide advanced financial services users with a cutting-edge set of features, allowing them to collaborate, communicate and consolidate their data in ways not previously possible. We're going to look at how you can manage multiple widgets to talk to each other, how you can get notifications with actions to appear, and how you can have two-way data in Excel staying live with validation and audit. What we're going to see is a dummy demo. It's not real data, it's a fictitious setup environment, as you can see, with 3 grids to sort of mock something a trader might have. So at the bottom here we've got a trade view with trades coming in every few seconds. On the top left we've got a price view, we've got 30 assets ticking with, again, dummy data with a price against each asset, and then a position view in the top right showing trades against prices. We also have for each of the views an audit, because Adaptable comes out of the box with audit, so you can see everything that goes on in your grids, whether it's by the user, whether it's data changes or what, and they stream into other grids, so you've got full oversight. Everything we can see in this demo comes out of the box with Adaptable. There's nothing we built especially for this demo other than this one select instrument toolbar at the top, which we will demo later. But everything else we're going to see now comes straight out of the box with Adaptable. It knows you're in OpenFin and it provides you with everything you need. So when you set up Adaptable, one of the things you do is you will give it what we call predefined config. So here we've opened a layout called counterparties, which shows us grouping data. We've also provided it with some config, a query, active US trades, so it can immediately query on that. And you can provide lots and lots of predefined config so that you set up your grid for first time use exactly how you want. Here we've got an action column called cancel, which we'll look at shortly, which you can define. You can have buttons, and you can say what happens when those buttons are clicked. As you can see, this is a pure OpenFin environment, so we're able to move windows around, we can tile them, we can save them, we can set up workspaces. So let's now create some the grid so to manage ourselves. So rather than predefined config, we're going to do this live. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a conditional style for the trade row. So you've seen we've set up the style, we say it's going to apply against the whole row. And now we're going to build what we call a query. This is a handwritten, very powerful query, lots and lots of functions you can add, and you can provide your own. So here we're going to say we want any row where the status is active. You can see it comes with full help, full support. You can see exactly what's going on. So we've created this style for those rows where the status is active, and when we click finish, you see that immediately applies. So any row which has it will show it. You can actually see if we now click some buttons in our cancel action column, as soon as we click them, then obviously the style changes because they're no longer active. Another thing we might do very quickly is let's just create what we call a custom sort. By default, out of the box, every column sorts alphabetically, but you can imagine if you've got, say, a tenor column or a rating column, that doesn't make sense. So here we're going to create a custom sort for this currency column, and we're going to say it's always going to show you euros, then dollars, and then pounds. So rather than the native alphabetical sort, now when we click sort, we can see here we are, euro, dollar, and then sterling, and then everything else alphabetically. Let's provide a couple more things. Let's maybe do the price view so it kind of looks exactly how we want it to, because we're going to spend a fair bit of time in there during this demo. So the first thing to do is let's look at that bid offer spread column, and it's quite hard to distinguish between the numbers. So this time we're going to create a format column which always provides a style irrespective of any condition, and we give it a gradient, a very simple gradient. We don't need to provide any kind of format, but we'll align the cells to the right. So we've created a gradient of 0 to 1 on green, and there we are. It colours the cells accordingly. Let's now create a calculated column. In fact, you can see we've already got two, because the ask and bid columns are themselves calculated using the price and bid offer spread. So as the price ticks or the bid offer spread changes, they will automatically update. All we store is the expression, and then Adaptable will show the value as required. So let's now create our own calculator column, and we want to show the difference between the closing price and the current price. So it's a very simple expression, close minus price. In fact, we can see what the result would be using the first row. Let's give this a name. So this is basically the change on day, because it's the difference between the two. Adaptable knows it's a numbers. It gives you other column properties. You can set them if you want. And there we are. It sets up the column, and that column now exists. It's a first class column in Adaptable. So the first thing we'll do is let's open our layout. So let's go into the layout editor, find our column down at the bottom, and we'll make it visible. There's our column, change on day. We can aggregate, group, and do all sorts of things with it. We can pin it, anything we want to do. Here we're just going to make it visible so we can see it, and there's our column, and now let's move it into place. We can see that the calculation, because it works on the raw value, has given us all these decimal places. So let's now do another format column, this time on our calculated column, to change that. So we don't need to create a style this time, but we do want to give it 4 fraction digits. And let's also put negative numbers in parentheses, and let's align it to the right. So we've now created a format for our calculated column, and now when we look at change on day, we can see it. But in fact, it's still quite difficult to see the difference between the positive and negative numbers. So let's very quickly create conditional style on that. So let's create one with a green background and a white font. But this time, instead of making the target the whole row, we're just going to make the target a single column. So it's the one we just created, change on day. And so therefore the condition won't be a query. Instead, it's what we call a predicate, where we have a number of provided little predicates you can do. Some take an input, some don't. So we did one on positive, and now we're going to do a second one, which would be negative. And this allows us to say that when you come across this column, the change on day column, our predicate of negative will fire, and it will Adaptable will show that style. So when we click finish, we can see the 2 columns with that. Let's just quickly auto size it so we've got everything in view. And there we are, we've created a couple of things. There's lots more we could do here in terms of being able to provide predefined config. We can do shortcuts, we can do queries, we can do alerts. There's an awful a lot of predefined config or things you can do at runtime, but at least now we've got our grid set up and ready to go. So the first area of integration we're going to look at is around communication, and we're going to see how Adaptable is able to leverage the FDC3 communication channels available in OpenFin to have different widgets and windows communicating with each other, and also that it can do it itself, providing its own FDC3 messages. So at the top here we can see that we're able to select an instrument. So here we selected Apple on the green channel, and you can see that all 3 windows jump to Apple. So if we lump to Cisco, we can see Cisco price, Cisco position, and Cisco trades at the bottom. And as I say, that's using the OpenFin FDC3 API to do that. Jump to Google, and all 3 widgets, all 3 adaptable instances show Google. But we can go further, because we can open a third-party widget. Here we're opening something called the company overview, which comes from OpenFin. That will automatically open onto the same active channel, which in this case is the green channel, which means that when the application opens, you can see it automatically shows me a Google chart, Google News, and then Google data at the bottom. And that's because it's coming from this channel here. So if now in Adaptable, I change it to Tesla, all 3 grids show me Tesla information, and then so does this external widget. It shows you a Tesla chart, Tesla news, and Tesla data. And obviously it can work the other way around. So if I import MSFT, Microsoft here, not only will I see a Microsoft stock quote, Microsoft news, and Microsoft data, but all 3 adaptable instances show me Microsoft information. So that's using the FDC3 API, but in fact Adaptable also has something called an instrument column. If you use the finance plugin, Adaptable ships with many different types of plugins. We're looking here today at the OpenFin plugin, but there's also a finance plugin you can use with it. Adaptable has what we call a context menu. It also provides a column menu, so you can add your own menu items. You can say if they should appear, when they appear, what should happen. You've got complete control over all your menuing to make sure that you're able to give your users a completely configurable experience. So if you have an instrument column, we provide something called a broadcast menu entry. Here it was called broadcast Google. And what happens there is that broadcasts an FDC3 message with information about the ticker, about the whole row. And immediately that external widget showed me Google. So if I now go into the price view, I go into the first row, which is Apple, and I do broadcast Apple, that will send the FDC3 instrument message. And there we are. Anybody listening will know and be able to show Apple data. So that's two different ways in which you're able to communicate between widgets in Adaptable. So the next area of integration we're going to look at is alerts. Adaptable comes with a very rich set of alerting features. You can listen to any kind of change, you can react to it, you can be informed about it, and you can define a huge different number of alert types so that you're immediately aware of any important changes that happen in your data that you need to know about. And if you're using OpenFin, as we'll see, these alerts will show up as OpenFin notifications with actions. So let's first actually configure our dashboard so we can see the alert toolbar. As you can see in the dashboard, you can create all sorts of tabs and toolbars. So we've now got the alert toolbar ready, and let's create an alert. It's not going to be a flashing alert, which is a date change. It's going to be a normal alert. And we're going to say it's going to work on the whole row. And we can choose whether it's a predicate, we can choose whether it's a normal query, like we've seen a couple already, or we can make an observable query. We can look at things over time, or as in this case, let's do an aggregation query, which essentially aggregates data and fires an alert if the sum of that matches some kind of condition. So the alert that will fire if the notional is going to be greater than 10 million. So whenever any notional changes, if the sum of all the notionals is 10 million, our alert will fire. But we don't want to do every row, we want to limit it, so let's add a where clause. And we'll say that we're only interested in those rows where the currency is CHF. So essentially what happens is anytime a notional change, if it's in a row where it's CHF, it will look at all the sum of the notionals, and if they exceed 10 million, you can see everything's context sensitive, you can see everything we need to know about it, the alert will fire. So let's make it an information so we can hear about it as soon as it happens, and then we click finish. There we are, there's our alert, notionals greater than 10 million. So now actually let's first quickly filter the currency column on CHF so we can see what we're doing. We can see it's already more than 10 million, so now if I make any change here, as soon as I click enter, there we are, there's my alert, and I can see that it triggered. That's very nice, but you actually got to know it's there. It's not very obvious that the alert's fired. So let's just change the alert behavior. We'll keep the same alert, but we'll go into display and we'll say show me a notification. And now we'll see what happens if I trigger the alert again. So I make a change. As soon as I press enter, we can now see on the right hand side, there we are, we've got an OpenFin notification telling me what's changed and giving me full details of the change. And that's very powerful, obviously, but we can go a stage further because we can also define some actions. So let's go into the price view, and this time we'll use the tool panel, that's the space on the right, rather than the toolbar, because it's useful when space is at a premium, and we'll create a new alert. As I say, you can create flashing alerts to react to data changes, or we're going to create a normal alert, a more typical alert. And again, it's going to work against the whole row. But this time we're going to do what's called an observable query. This is an RX type query that looks at data, either looks at changes in a particular row or in the whole grid, or even the absence of changes. And you basically say what the type of change you're interested in and a time frame. So you can tell me if this has not changed in the last 5 minutes, tell me if this has changed 5 times, tell me if this is the highest price it's been today, tell me if it's changed 5 times, or whatever you want. So here we're saying, tell me if the bid offer spread has changed 3 times. If the count of bid offer spread is 3, we need to give it a time frame. We need to say what the period is in which we should look for changes. So we say 5 minutes. Okay, it's very easy to add. You can see everything's context sensitive. You can do minutes, hours, seconds. So we've said the row change, so it's any row where the bid offer spread has 3 changes in any 5-minute period. We'll make it message type warning, and we'll say show me a notification. But we're also now going to add a button. We're going to say basically when we have the notification, I want to be able to do something. So I want to add a button called Show Me, and I'm going to attach two actions, one to highlight the cell and one to jump to the cell. So now there's my buttons, there's my condition. So now if I was to make this cell change 3 times, it will trigger it because it's in 5 minutes. That's one change. Here's a second change, that's fine. But now I make my third change. Bump, there we are. We can see on the right hand side we've got a warning, and when we click Show Me, it triggers those actions to highlight the cell and jump to the cell. Let's do it one more time so we can see it again. So let's make the first change to go down to 0.2. Let's make the second change to go down to 0.1. Let's make our third change. There we are. There's our third change. Once again, we trigger it. We've got the OK button. We'll click the Show Me button, and we can see the offending cell. Let's clear that. Let's create a third type of alert. And the first two we've looked at so far have worked on the whole row. But sometimes you might just want an alert to look at a particular column, to look at changes if it's greater than a certain value, or if the change is one which you need to be aware of. So we're going to create an alert for the bid offer spread column. So we'll configure another alert. And this time we're going to make it just on a single column rather than a whole row. So there we are. Let's choose bid offer spread. And the condition won't be a query. Instead, it will be what's called a predicate. Some predicates take a value, some don't. This one does. It's called percent change. And essentially, we're going to say if the percent change is 100, i.e. if the value doubles or more than doubles, then I want to know about it. And we're going to say it's an error. That's the type. And let's add a button, and let's call this undo. So we're saying when that happens, I want to have an undo button, and I want to wire that to the undo action. So now, when I finish this, if we have any change, we should see the undo button. So there we are, we're 0.2. Let's change that to 0.8. That more than doubles the value. So there we are. We get our alert. We click undo, and if we go back into our grid, we can see 0.8 became 0.2. Let's do it again. It's 0.3. Make it 0.8. That triggers the alert. There's our alert. There it is. OK, undo. Click undo, and 0.8 jump back to 0.3. So there we are. We've created 3 or 4 different types of alerts, but all of them trigger as notifications with actions as well. The final area of integration between Adaptable and OpenFin we're going to look at is regarding Excel. As we all know, end users love Excel, in particular in financial services, and with good reason. It's powerful, it's got an incredible suite of functions, and it really does everything they want. But it comes at a cost. It doesn't have meaningful validation, there's not great audit involved, and it's very hard to collaborate, even though we have partners like iPushPull who do some really great stuff. So we're going to see now some ways in which Adaptable and OpenFin can deal with this problem. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new tab called Reporting, and we're going to put 2 toolbars in there. One which is the OpenFin toolbar. That's a toolbar that's only available if you're using Adaptable with the OpenFin plugin. It's got some OpenFin only functionality. And the other is the Export toolbar. So there we are. We've got the plotter and reporting tabs with different sets of toolbars in there. Adaptable comes with very powerful reporting functionality. These are the 5 reports that we ship out of the box, and each of these reports can go to various destinations, and you can add your own custom destinations, and of course you can create your own reports. You can also schedule them to go at different times, so you can create an end of day report to fire every day at 5 o'clock to whichever destination you want. We're going to create a user report, so we've set it to be we set it to visible columns, but the rows we're going to do a query. We're going to say we only want a particular set of rows in our report, and we're going to use the functions which we've seen before from our query editor. Status is going to be active, and then within the queries you can have and/or functionality, and this can be as many levels deep as you want. We'll keep it very simple. We'll do a very simple and, so basically essentially 2 clauses. The status is active and the currency is USD. As always, there's full context sensitive help, so you can build incredibly complex and powerful queries. If you want, you can save this as a named query, which means that if you give it a name, that query can then be available elsewhere, like conditional styles and also other parts of Adaptable. But we're just going to create a basic report now, and we'll call it active dollar trades, because that's what it is. And this report now we can run whenever we want. There we are, status is active, currency is USD, and we can send it to lots of places. Let's first filter this column. So we'll clear the existing filter, and we'll add another filter. So we'll open up the filters, and then you can see all the available values, and we're going to USD. And let's now just cancel a couple of trades, so we've got a slightly more smaller data set to play with. There's our report. So it's now available if we want in the export toolbar to export, but it's also available to us in the OpenFin toolbar, and that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to select it, and now we start sync with OpenFin. And what that means is this is now a live report, meaning that we now have what we call two-way live data, as we will see with validation and audit. So when you start a live report, Excel will automatically start up, and it will show the data in that report. So in this case, it's showing us visible columns for active dollar trades. So you can see the last this row here, which is we're moving it to 90 million and 4, and then that's the first row actually in our data set. And when you go there into Excel, cell D2, 90 million and 4. If you go to the last row, that's trade ID 144, which is actually the first one in Adaptable. So if we change this from 100 million to 80 million, when we press move away from the cell, you can see the first row in the Adaptable grid has changed to 80 million. So the two, doesn't matter which one, and it can be cell edits or it can be ticking data, both Excel and Adaptable will always stay in sync with each other. So not only that, because we have the audit that we looked at before, not only do we know what the change was made in Excel, but we also have the ability to see who made it, when they made it, etc. So you've got full visibility over any edits people make in Excel. Now we'll go a stage further. We're going to add what we now call another alert, but a validation alert. So it checks, it's an alert which checks whether a cell edit is valid. So we're going to create a nice simple one. So the trigger, instead of being a whole row, is going to be a column, and it's going to be the notional column. And we'll use what a predicate. We've seen a couple of these earlier, and we'll use the greater than predicate, which takes an input. It's got to be greater than a number. So we're going to say 50 million. So we're basically going to say don't allow or throw an error for any edits where the notional value is greater than 50 million. And let's now do what we did before. Let's create an undo button, and we'll link that to the undo action. So there we are, there's our undo button. And now this is our alert. You can have other things in the behavior if you want. You can do a prevent cell edit, which will actually stop the edit happening, but we don't want to do this because of what we're going to see in Excel. So we've now got our alert for any notional greater than 50 million. So if I now go into this row, which is actually 70 million, I change this to 80, so it's gone from 70 million to 80 million, so it's triggered the more than 50. There, the alert's fired, I see it here. When I undo, it goes back to the initial figure, which was 70 million. So basically, we've seen this already. This is an undo alert. But what's nice is, Excel, if we now were to go back into our OpenFin toolbar, reset the live Excel, so now the live report is back in Excel, we will have the same thing. So if you go into this row, which is currently saying 80 million, row 144, we change the 80 million to 90 million, that triggers our alert, we click undo, and then there the cell jumps back, D14, back from 90 million to 80 million. So in a sense, we've kind of put it all together. We've shown here the audit, we've shown here the multiple windows, as well as the notifications. There's lots more in Adaptable, as you can see. We've only seen in this demo a tiny subsection of all the functionality that's available, but hopefully it's giving you a sense of the very rich, powerful functionality available to you and how configurable it is. Please do get in touch if you'd like to know more. Our website's www.adaptabletools.com, or you can go to our demo site, demo.adaptabletools.com, where you can see about 50 or 60 different demos, all showing different aspects of Adaptable, or docs.adaptabletools.com, which is our very full help and documentation. So thank you for watching, and do please get in touch if you would like to learn more.